Hola, ¿qué tal? Yeah, I got this thing on late today. I've really got to do better at that.
Yeah.
I really got to do better at that. I got to do better at that.
5 seconds out.
5 seconds. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. So far, it appears as though no one wants our technical producer Chris Campbell's underwear. I've set this up so that you can have Chris Campbell's underwear, the underwear that he's actually wearing during this broadcast, and we'll wash them first, of course. But what we're doing here is we are giving you an opportunity to win Chris Campbell's underwear, our technical producer's underwear, if you can name the last major production from Hollywood that had the hero. It was a spy thriller. I'll give you that clue. That actually put his weapon down to confront the evil villain that was right in front of him. He put his gun down and reasoned with the person and survived the event. Name the last Hollywood major movie that had that scene, and I will give you Chris Campbell's underwear after they've been thoroughly washed and cleaned by professionals and hazmat crews available from the government. Hey, you got to be careful. Brady Boyd. Brady Boyd is a pastor of a church. It's the New Life Church. It suffered through a dark day when gunmen came to the property, opened fire with an assault rifle, killed 2 of the teenage girls, injured others, and then the gunman took his life in the hallway. Yesterday, I was taking a special guest to our memorial site to tell her the miracle story of our healing when the news broke another church in South Texas. I just experienced the same horror. A military-trained man with an assault rifle with an intent to kill unarmed people is almost impossible to stop. No amount of training could have prepared that tiny church in Texas for this evil. We're now living in a violent society where even small-town America and small rural churches are not safe. Church security was something I had never heard discussed while growing up in North Louisiana. Guns were plentiful, but there seemed to be no threats to our safety in the sanctuaries of my youth. Today, the world has changed. Violence is seemingly always at our doorsteps. The sad reality is that every church should have a strategy to protect its members when they gather. We had a great plan on December 9th, 2007 that saved scores of lives, and today we're even more prepared. In fact, our church may be the safest public gathering place in our city. We take it very seriously. We have learned valuable lessons. First, every church should hire at least one uniformed police officer to be visible in the main lobby and parking lot. Every Sunday, there is a police car parked in front of our church. These off-duty officers are paid by us to be present. They are now our friends, and we see them as part of our vital team each weekend. Most crime studies show that criminals can be deterred by the physical presence of police on the property. If local police are not available, hire a very visible security guard. When we first employed uniformed police, people were concerned that the church would feel unsafe, but the opposite has happened. So many people have personally thanked me for having the officers present because it is so reassuring. This is a huge testimony to our local police and sheriff's department, who both have stellar reputations in our community. Because we live in a military town, we're able to recruit and train dozens of men and women to serve our church as volunteers. They spend all weekend protecting our nation. They love serving their church the same way. They dress in plain clothes, but walk the property during our worship services, serving our people. We live in a state that allows most people to carry concealed weapons and to carry openly if they choose. We discourage our members from bringing guns into the church. In fact, if we know someone has a weapon, we escort them out to their car and watch them put it away. We have plenty of trained and qualified people who are appropriately armed, so extra weapons are not necessary, can actually cause more harm should there be a violent episode. We train our team to be watchful and diligent, but not obtrusive or aggressive. In fact, most of the 10,000 or so people who attend our church are not even aware of the security team, other than noticing a police car out front. We are a church, not a sports stadium. We do not have metal detectors. We're not checking handbags as people enter. Most of the violence that happens in a church is a spillover of some sort of domestic issue. Families target one another at church because they know they can be found at a certain time and place every week. Our pastors are sensitive to families going through divorce or some kind of custody dispute. If there's a problem at home that could affect the church, we alert the police officer on duty many times. That officer has diffused conflict before it ever turns ugly and violent. With all this attention to violence and securing our worship space, we've made sure that we have not lost our innocence along the way. We are not fearful, but we are wise. We are not downcast, but we are watchful. We gather every week to pray our songs, to sing our prayers, and to learn our scriptures. We have chosen to forgive those who wish us harm and to bless those that speak evil against us. Church is a holy gathering of imperfect people, people wrestling with mental health, and those struggling with relationships come through our doors every day. Our security team makes it possible for them to find hope and healing in a very safe environment. This is how we live. This is the new normal. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The price of liberty is equally eternal vigilance. There would be no America without this vigilance. There would be no America without the vigilance that we live with. This is not the first time that churches have had to conceal their activities or protect themselves. Everyone walks into a church, nearly everyone walks into a church and sees the glorious stained glass windows that adorn the sides of the church. The sun streams through. The windows tell a story. As the beautiful gem colors cascade over people's faces and hearts. But those stained glass windows were first used to conceal the faith that was unfolding inside those buildings and those churches. Like then, there is now persecution of Christians and others. It is sad, but it is real. These things have not changed. The weapons used have evolved over time, from rocks to clubs, to swords, and yes, to firearms. But it does take, and there is no other way to look at this. It takes a good man with a weapon to stop a bad man with a weapon. And that is simply the case. And that is always the case. These people who live in Never Never Land, who live in a place that does not exist, the utopian ideology of Democrats all over the country, which is not utopian, it is quite simply the opposite. It is totalitarian. Can you imagine? Think about this for just a moment. Everyone now calling for everyone to turn in their weapons and never ever pick them up again are all Democrats. Were these the same Democrats that turned the IRS into a political bludgeon to defeat their political opposers? Was it not this very same Democrat Party? Was it not this same Democrat Party that actually engineered a breakage of American firearm laws that cost a Border Patrol officer his life? Those very weapons used in this fake crime ended up causing a real one, the murderous loss of Brian Terry. These very same Democrats, they're not calling for a safer society. They're calling for more soft targets, more defenselessness before the monsters. And they try to bludgeon us with terribly stark spoken imagery in an effort to cow us into self-defenselessness. It's not going to happen. It is not American. The biggest enemy, according to Americans, the biggest enemy to freedom and liberty in the United States is not a gunman in South Texas. The biggest enemy to freedom and liberty in the United States is, do you know what it is? Do you know? Why, yes. It is the federal government of the United States. You can look it up. And why is this? Because these same people that would look in the face of a terrorist act and say, no, it's not a terrorist act, you need to ignore your own lying eyes, are now saying that you must be defenseless before the maelstrom. Because they themselves are the maelstrom as they walk around in their conveniently high security areas, not having to realize the defenselessness that they themselves are trying to impose on us. And then to say to their fellow congressmen that they're being beaten about the head and shoulders by the NRA. Who is the NRA? I am the NRA. I'm not browbeating any congressman into doing anything that isn't expressly spelled out in the Constitution of the United States. But my political opposition is certainly doing things that are contravening of those things spelled out in the United States, in the Constitution of the United States. It's right there. The people have the right to bear arms, but the argument is incessant. There is nothing aside from what many of our founding fathers called treason. There's nothing out there to justify the Second Amendment being overturned under any circumstances. But even if that was the case, why doesn't Richard Blumenthal? Why doesn't Chris Murphy? Why doesn't Dianne Feinstein? Why don't all these alleged American patriots? Why don't they use the Constitution of the United States as a remedy for their own ideas? If you choose to amend the Constitution of the United States, which is what is required to rid oneself of an amendment to the Constitution of the United States. If indeed that's what you choose to do, here's how you do it. You put a resolution before the Senate and the House of Representatives. A 2/3 vote will get it to the president's desk. He has to sign it, and then 2/3 of the state in less than 2 years must ratify it. There you go. But why don't they do that? Well, because the obvious reality that they are completely un-American would make itself plain and apparent, and they would lose their political lives. That's why. So what do? They go back to the simple case, the simple word of unalienable. The Declaration of Independence, unalienable rights granted by God. And they try to put liens on our rights. It has been a failure. It will always be a failure. The conversation is settled. The only thing that you have to concern yourself with is how loud the next argument is going to be. This is the Wells Report, the USA Radio Network.
Oh, you rat bastard.
What?
You want to give away my underwear?
Yes.
Why?
Because I can.
Well, you know, I want them to, if they go out, I have my rules. They have to be dealt with limited edition skid marks. I was laughing at it, honestly. I was.
I know you were.
Yeah. Although Brandon totally rolled you under the bus on it. He said I had nothing to do with it.
Oh. Wait a minute. What?
Huh?
Oh, wait. Ah, crap. That was brilliant. Shoot.
What was?
Oh, damn it.
Oh, I could finish. Not just. Hold on. I'll be right back, JD.
Okay.
Brandon wants to know if he's eligible for my underwear lottery.
What?
Brandon wants to know if he's eligible for the underwear lottery.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, JD says yes, but only if you're willing to win.
It's not a lottery. Lotteries are illegal.
It's my bit. Hey,
Oh.
listen, JD says you're eligible to win only if you take the very deluxe super limited edition.
God.
He just ate corn last
night.
He says only if I don't wash them.
Oh.
Oh, you should see it after I have broccoli. Woo! Oh, and forget about it. If I had JD's the only one who's going to get this reference, but if I ever have like the buffalo wings from Tropicana Pizza, oh man, it's like Technicolor back there. You know what? I could actually go for Tropicana Pizza's bread and mushrooms. He's ignoring me now.
No.
Hey, Brandon, go ahead and go in the fishbowl. It's going to be you and I doing this now because he's ignoring me. We'll call it Chris and Friends. Yeah. We're going to do magic tricks, card. We're going to do black. We'll do solitaire. Yeah, but I have to stand on.
Nobody's answering the question, by the way.
What question?
The question is, what was the last major Hollywood picture that had the that had the hero putting his weapon down and reasoning with an incredibly violent villain and living through the event?
I want to say Red Dawn, but I know I'm wrong.
Wrong.
Give me a clue.
It's a spy thriller.
Oh, I want Some of All Fears.
No.
Damn. All right, now I'm wondering. Hello, Google.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. And so, how many more laws do we need for somebody like the San Antonio gunman to violate on his way to kill as many people as he possibly could? Would it make people feel better if he violated 8 laws instead of 6? 10 laws instead of 6? 158,221 laws instead of 6? He would have done whatever he wanted to do or whatever he could have done. He violated law after law after law after law. He was going to have that weapon. How about the guy who who arguably ended the entire event? If it was the law of the land, with the man who got up from his sofa at the request of his daughter, who called him on the telephone and said that there was a shooting going on across the street from his house, locks and loads an AR-15, goes out in his front yard and engages the gunman, puts one on center mass and puts a bullet through the man's body armor. Arguably ends the man's life. We'll know more in the next couple of days. All of that. If you asked him, because the law of the land now said you had to turn in your weapons, do you believe he would do it? He probably would. Have you heard of anybody in this entire affair from the police department or sheriff's department or anybody in law enforcement whatsoever pulling their service weapon and shooting it at this guy? Who shot at the guy? You did. I did. We did. The only guy that could. A civilian with no military experience. Just a guy who's pretty dang handy with an AR-15. And why is he dang handy with an AR-15? Because that's a great rifle. That's why. Why do you think so many people buy them? It's not the way they look. It's the way they perform. I'll never forget the first time I held an M16 in my hand. It was on a firing range at Camp Pendleton, California. It fit me like a glove. The one I have right now, the several I have right now, they still fit me like a glove. It's a great, great rifle. It's a wonderful weapon system, but it's not an assault rifle. Assault rifles are fully automatic and semi-automatic, and last I checked, were about $40,000 a piece, if you could get a permit to have one. These are semi-automatic utility rifles. They're called utility rifles because you don't have to worry about dropping them on the ground. You don't have to, I mean, let's put it this way. We got a Weatherby Magnum that was handed down by your grandfather to you. 300 Win Mag with a walnut burl stock. You drop it on a rock. And there are generations of people yelling in your ears about destroying your grandfather's rifle. Drop an AR-15 on the same rock, pick it back up, dust it off. No problem. No problem at all. My dear friends, remember that the vast majority of us are law-abiding, America-loving, neighbor-loving citizens. There are monsters in the fold. There are wolves stalking the sheep. Be a sheepdog. Learn to turn them aside. The wolves, I mean. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
The Color Purple. That's the movie.
No.
Now I can't find it anywhere. What is it?
I'm not going to tell you. I can't tell you because people who are watching on Facebook right this very moment.
Oh, put it on the call screen.
I'm not going to put it on the call screen.
Nobody can see that.
Oh, that's true. Hang on a minute. Stand by. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Right.
Hold on. Just a second.
It's driving me nuts now.
Yeah, I know it's driving you nuts now. You're not going to believe it. But you can't blurt it out.
I'll have fun with it, but I won't blurt it out.
Yeah, you'll blurt it out. You will.
And hey, by the way, you just did a contest on the air. How are you going to deliver my underwear?
I'm going to have you wash your underwear and give them to the person who wins.
No.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have that.
I'm going to go to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Lane Bryant's version of Victoria's Secret. Huh?
Yeah.
Get ready for the nightmares.
You ready for the nightmares to come? Eh? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Hang on a minute here.
They open that, they're going to think it's Apocalypse Now.
So funny.
What?
But you eyeball me full. They're thinking about your underwear. That's what they're doing.
Now, if I had Sarah Huckabee's underwear,
God,
I have a
disgusting.
I have a crush on her.
Yeah,
I so do.
sure.
I'm
you
not
do.
the only one.
Yeah, I know. Yes, you are the only one.
No, I'm not.
You're the only one.
No, Brandon's like, oh, wait, Henry, half this conversation. She's like, yeah, no, you are.
No, you're the only one.
No,
Trust me
where's
on
the
this.
answer?
I'm gonna bring it to you in just a second.
All right.
Okay, hold on. I'm typing now.
Do you think if I asked her nicely,
You're not gonna believe it.
do you think if I asked her nicely, she would shave my back hair?
Nope.
No. Brandon's like, I hear you clacking away.
Okay, hold on. How do I get that up there? How do I get it up there? How do I
Click in the studio chat box?
Oh wait, the studio chat. That's right. Okay, hang on a second here. Watch this.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's a good riddle, actually.
It is.
All right.
It is.
Oh, let me give you some news. And I'll
What?
be back in a minute.
Highly qualified candidates
Oh,
fast.
okay.
And you don't want to sign a long-term contract or pay upfront fees. That's why you need Indeed.com, delivering 6 times more hires than any other job site, according to independent research. Indeed is offering new users a $50 credit to give their first job post premium visibility as a sponsored job. Redeem this offer at Indeed.com/credit. That's Indeed.com/credit. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
A Saudi Arabian prince and 8 high-ranking government officials are killed in a helicopter crash. And USA Radio's Chris Barnes has details.
Saudi Prince Mansour bin Makreen and those other high-ranking Saudi government officials died when the helicopter went down near the Red Sea coast in an area where bin Makreen recently took over the post of deputy governor. The prince had been on a tour of the region by ground and then by air on Sunday prior to the crash. The cause of the crash has not been reported. For USA Radio News, I'm Chris Barnes.
All 3 major indices are closing at record highs on Wall Street today after news of 2 possibly huge deals. Communications chipmaker Broadcom Limited says it's making a bid for smartphone chip supplier Qualcomm. The $103 billion cash and stock deal would be the biggest tech acquisition ever. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 9 points to close at 23,548. The S&P 500 climbed 3 points to 2591, and the Nasdaq gained 22 points to close at 6786. This is USA Radio News.
Colonel Sanders from KFC here to talk about the good old days. Well, the good old days are still here in chicken form, specifically in KFC's original recipe fried chicken with 11 herbs and spices. Our delicious chicken is still hand-breaded and pressure-fried just like it was then. Get your fill with 2 pieces of my original recipe in a $5 fill-up with mashed potatoes, a biscuit, a cookie, and a drink at a KFC near you. KFC, it's still finger-licking good. At participating KFCs, prices may vary. Tax extra.
Motive may be becoming clearer in the South Texas church shooting, which left 26 dead. Correspondent Taylor Millard has more.
The Texas Department of Public Safety thinks a domestic dispute may help them figure out why Devin Patrick Kelly attacked First Baptist Church Sutherland Springs.
This was not racially motivated. It wasn't over religious beliefs. There was a domestic situation going on within the family and the in-laws.
DPS Commander Freeman Martin says Kelly's former mother-in-law attended the church, but was not there when Kelly opened fire yesterday. He says she got threatening messages from Kelly, but declined to reveal what was in them. It's believed Kelly took his own life after being shot by a Good Samaritan and wrecking out his car. In Texas, I'm Taylor Millard.
Thanks, Taylor. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross claims he didn't withhold information from the Senate about business interests with Russian leader Vladimir Putin's immediate family. NBC News reported a leak of financial documents showed Ross had business links to a Russian firm with close ties to Putin. Ross told CNBC the report is, quote, totally wrong. And he went on to say he reported the business interest 3 times on his financial disclosure form. The shooter who opened fire inside a Colorado Walmart is in court today. Prosecutors are expected to formally charge 47-year-old Scott Ostrom in last Wednesday's shootings. He's accused of walking into a Thornton, Colorado Walmart and opening fire on a group of people standing near the front of the store. Recapping our top story, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio joins Argentina's president in mourning the loss of those killed in last week's terror attack in Lower Manhattan. The two placed flowers next to the bike path today where an alleged terrorist killed 8 people and injured several others. For USA Radio News,
I'm Fareed. I'm Fareed doing the news. Ron's doing great with that. John David Wells, you ready to do a broadcast?
Yes.
Yeah. I want you to talk about the Fareed, the man cow, and the Opie and Anthony. And how we have lamb half off. I'm here to defend himself as he grabs all the shopping carts from a local pack and save. Wow, why did I bring that old name up? All right, phone call.
Hot diggity. North to south, coast to coast, you're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. As we recoil in horror at the events of San Antonio yesterday, we are drawn back to yet another reason why we have so much difficulty dealing with this subject in the first place. And that is the unbelievable mishandling of virtually everything having to do with news in our country by our news media. The news media of the United States is decidedly left, has seen fit to bring bias and politics to nearly every topic. In bringing this bias to nearly every topic, what has been lost is credibility and relevance. Credibility and relevance is incredibly important. It is not just that you report the truth. It's that people believe you are reporting the truth. It is something that you do every single day as a matter of your moral and your professional compass. The moral and professional compass of our mainstream media has long been distorted by the warped lens of politics and by the unbelievable seduction of those responsible for truth in the media by political forces who realize that warpage that they have grown accustomed to over the years is a powerfully effective tool when laid near the undistorted text of truth and how this twisting, how this warpage of simple things can alter the realities and the perceptions of people, Americans in these great United States. To the benefit of what? To the benefit of their political goals. What are their political goals? Nothing pro-American, I fear. Michael Goodwin, whose last name ought to be Goodwin, has written a wonderful, brilliant piece in the New York Post. It is regarding FBI Director Robert Mueller and the New York Times coverage of his work as special counselor or special prosecutor against the Trump administration. He writes, a friend likens the New York Times to a 1960s adolescent who refuses to grow up. In a perpetual state of outrage, it is a newspaper of college snowflakes who embrace all forms of diversity except thought. It sees liberal politics not as a point of view, but as a received wisdom that cannot be legitimately disputed. The fixation on conformity reached a new low last week when the paper rolled out a coordinated attack on those of us who believe special counsel Robert Mueller ought to resign. I say coordinated because the newsroom and the opinion page produced similar pieces on the same day, showing again how executive editor Dean Baquet has erased the barrier between news and opinion and turned every page into an opinion page. Michael Goodwin is discussing the New York Times. In the Times view, there are only two reasons to question Mueller's credibility: insanity or treason. And so we detractors stand accused of engaging in conspiracy that emboldens adversaries like Russia and produced a, quote, constitutional crisis, unquote. The animating impulse for the assault is obvious. The Times is locked into a mission of destroying President Trump. Like Hillary Clinton, the Times can still not accept Trump's election as legitimate. Consider that the paper's dozen op-ed columnists are all never Trumpers. That's either a remarkable coincidence or a litmus test for hiring. But the paper, following a bad habit it developed during the Barack Obama presidency, is not content with advocating its positions. Behaving like a party propaganda outlet, it takes a coercive approach to anyone with a different view. Objections are demonized as heretical. The reactionary tone of both pieces last week, following ones by columnist Nicholas Kristof and Brett Stevens, carries the unavoidable assumption that Trump is guilty of colluding with the Russians, and critics of Mueller are subversive with unpatriotic aims. This is something that I agree with Mr. Goodwin on. This is a bad precedent to throw the word subversive against someone who sees a different reality is the tactic of an oppressor. Period. The spear carrier for the Times newsroom opinion, media reporter Jim Rutenberg, singled me, Michael Goodwin, singled me out for making a dubious argument that Mueller has too many conflicts of interests. Rutenberg, who assumed the role of Baquet's apologist for his biased coverage of Trump, flatly declared doubts about Mueller unwarranted because there is no evidence to support the assertion that the Democrats hired Fusion GPS with the purpose of getting Russians to spread wild allegations about Mr. Trump. Michael Goodwin calls this a straw man and says that the logic of Mr. Rutenberg turns the concept of evidence on its head, making it required before an investigation can start. Isn't the point of an investigation to find evidence? But here's the problem. The Democrats did hire Fusion GPS. The canceled checks are available for anyone to see. They did indeed hire Fusion GPS with the purpose of getting Russians to spread wild allegations about Mr. Trump. Allegations that had no real process of refuting them, and therefore must be true. Not the case. But it got close. Besides, if lack of evidence is sufficient enough to avoid investigation, why is Mueller still investigating Trump, since more than a year of FBI probes have turned up no evidence of Trump wrongdoing? The editorial page, according to Michael Goodwin, talking of the Times, is even more venomous, citing criticism of the special counsel crazy talk. Incredibly, it also equated us with those who were silent in the face of Nazis by opening the editorial with, and then they came for Robert Mueller. The zeal to protect Robert Mueller from any criticism raises the question of why the Times cares so much. With the mainstream media in lockstep with its jihad against Trump, why bother to smear a handful of skeptics? Because they're not skeptics. Because it isn't heresy. Because it's truth. And the consumers of real news get it. The great sin was to argue that Mueller's close relationship with his successor of the FBI, James Comey, was always a problem, and that recent developments created a situation that was fixable only by resignation. Those added conflicts include the revelation that Clinton's campaign and Democrat Party paid for the Russian dossier against Trump, with some of its paid resources linked directly to the Kremlin. So who is guilty of collusion with Russians now? Who is that? Since this is something that's a matter of public record. The people colluding with Russians to alter the outcome of the 2016 presidential election are clearly Democrats, insofar as we now have proof that they indeed did so. And the dearth of evidence supporting a Republican move in that direction speaks for itself, especially after a year and several months. Those added conflicts, including the revelation of Clinton's campaign and the Democrat Party paying for the Russian dossier. Because the FBI reportedly used the dossier to launch its probe of Trump, and considering its author any probe faithful to Mueller's assignment would include an examination of the FBI role in 2016. That would put Mueller in the untenable position of investigating the agency he led for 12 years. He is not going to do that. But if he doesn't recuse himself from that part of the investigation, he will not proceed with it either. Moreover, as questions grow about whether Obama White House used the dossier as justification for unmasking Trump associates picked up in wiretaps in an attempt to swing the election to Clinton, Mueller's probe must also examine the previous administration. But that is an impossible task because he spent more than 4 years working for President Obama when he was a colleague of Hillary Clinton's. Resignation under these circumstances is not a radical idea, especially because he, Michael Goodwin, did not call for the Russia probe to end. I merely stated an obvious fact about how serious conflicts of interest are routinely resolved in the criminal justice system. For example, a judge with Mueller's relationships in history would almost certainly be recused from overseeing those cases. So why should a special counsel investigating the president be held to a lesser standard? And if the Justice Department rules required Attorney General Jeff Sessions to recuse himself from anything related to the 2016 campaign because he was a Trump surrogate, then those same rules would apply to Mueller's relationship with Clinton, Obama, and Comey. Again, this is not partisan politics. This is the news. This is truth. This is reality here. A judge with Mueller's relationship in history would almost certainly be recused from overseeing those cases. Why should a lesser counsel investigating the president be held to a lesser standard? And if the Justice Department rules required Attorney General Jeff Sessions to recuse himself from anything related to the 2016 campaign because he was a Trump surrogate, those same rules should apply to Mueller's relationship with Clinton, Obama, and Comey. How much further will we, the people, allow the mainstream media to continue misrepresenting the facts? What I want to know is how long will it be before the mainstream media ever finds its professional compass? They must find it. Our country deserves it. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
You're clear. and we, you know what, the media has been doing a great job lately. You got to lay off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You know, it's easy to be critical when you're an armchair Monday morning quarterback.
Are you
Trying to do it with a straight face.
Are you calling me a Monday morning quarterback?
Yeah, I'm calling you a Monday morning quarterback. I mean, listen, I haven't seen a quarterback this inactive until I saw Tony Romo in the pocket. I'm messing with you, man. You know that.
Oh, that's funny.
Dan's back.
Hi.
We got to get you and Dan to do that pot segment.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
He could help you out if you're not feeling too good.
Just got a cold, man.
By the way, Dan wearing all white today. I think he's either applying for a job at a cruise line or he's just been elected mayor of Guam. Thank you, Don Rickles, for that joke. I miss that guy. Rickles was the best. Tom Henchey. I used an old Rickles joke on him. Tom Henchey, because we were talking about our, heritage and ethnic backgrounds. I'm Irish. Tom's Irish Italian, right? And Tom, we were talking. He goes, "Yeah, Chris, where does your family come from in Europe?" I go, "Ireland." See you, Brandon. Little Nancy boy. No, I love Brandon. So anyway, I go, "I'm Irish." I go, "How about you, Tom?" He goes, I'm Italian Irish. Oh, father was a sailor, huh? Great Ruckles joke. You want me to go to tape?
What?
Huh? Okay. I'll just turn my mic off now. I'll go.
What do you mean?
No, it's okay. I'll just go back to being your board monkey.
I was listening.
I'm gonna throw my monkey poo at somebody.
I was listening.
I'm gonna throw a monkey poo at somebody. You know what? A little Italian food might clear that right up. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or eucalyptus oil. That works great. That's what I use. Here you go. I'll get you to laugh. Hey, JD, it's Rusty Humphreys here. I'll come over and rub Vicks on your chest.
Oh no, you won't.
I'll do it while wearing Chris's underwear.
Here you go.
Yeah. I'll come over and I'll rub some Vicks on your chest wearing the naughty nurse outfit. Wow, you really are sick. That's why some of my A material. I'm looking to sue Milton Bradley. Nobody's biting. Smart move. 1 minute till we rejoin broadcast, Mr. Wells. hitting the bong?
Oh, no.
Sounds
No.
like you're hitting the ganja.
Not at all.
You and Bob Marley striking a duet right about now.
Nope.
Here we go.
Yep.
Here we go. Here we go.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844 972 927 6691. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was peacefully minding my own business, getting that wrong. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Talking about Michael Goodwin's superb column in the New York Post regarding the New York Times absolutely biased coverage of Robert Mueller's investigation into the Trump administration, which is what it is. All this is an attempt to try to remove Donald Trump from office, perpetrated by a left who cannot believe that their iconic candidate, Hillary Clinton, was dispatched by the American people for what was clearly a simple act of American liberty and freedom. Many people who say that Hillary Clinton did not represent a threat to American freedom and liberty simply didn't pay attention to what she had to say, or simply did pay attention to what she had to say, but somehow agreed that a loss of freedom and liberty was absolutely critical to the future of this nation. In which case, they're completely and thoroughly wrong. What a surprise. It is not shocking that the American media abandoned the truth and chose sides. It is shocking that they did so ahead of the 2008 election. It's been nearly 10 years, and they have not yet found their professional and ethical compass. I'm beginning to wonder if they ever will. Goodwin finishes up his column by saying, resignation under these circumstances is not a radical idea, especially because Goodwin did not call for the Russia probe to end. I merely stated an obvious fact about how serious conflicts of interest are routinely resolved in the criminal justice system. For example, a judge with Mueller's relationship in history would almost certainly be recused from overseeing those cases. Why would a special counsel investigating the president be held to a lesser standard? And if Justice Department rules required Attorney General Jeff Sessions to recuse himself from anything related to the 2016 campaign because he was a Trump surrogate, then those rules should apply to Mueller's relationship with Clinton, Obama, and Comey. In the end, the Times' rabid defense of Mueller resembles the debacle of a 2016 campaign coverage. It never saw Trump's victory coming because it was blinded by its hatred for him and contempt for his 63 million voters. This, of course, hits the ball out of the park when you start considering the reality of the situation that we're dealing with. Hits the ball out of the park. There is no better column out there that explains the monstrous conclusions that one could draw from a mainstream media paper abandoning the truth and choosing sides. It is my hope that indeed the mainstream media finds its mission yet again. It may seem simplistic, but in light of the fact that they are unable to find the truth, a truth that I can find with a simple perusal of some 20 newspapers, it is my hope that someday, that those people in those major journalistic jobs find the nonstop satisfaction in the pleasant reality of simply reporting the truth instead of the politics. Simple truth. Critical to this nation. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
You're clear, Comrade Wills.
Why, thank you.
My God.
What,
Oh,
was
you're
that
not-
loud?
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
you're
Was
fine.
that loud?
No, you're fine.
I'm sorry.
I can hear the congestion. Can't you just, I'm not being funny, but can't you just hack that up?
What?
I can hear the congestion. Can't you just hack that up?
No.
Why?
No, I can't. What?
Why?
Because there's nothing in my throat. It's all in my nose.
Oh, we'll go blow your nose then. Problem solved.
No.
Actually, you know what you do? Swear to God, it works. Hear me out. You get one of these hypodermics. There's no needle on it. You go get a thing of saline solution. Drop the hypodermic in there, extract what you need, shoot it up your
Sure.
nose, it flushes right out.
Right out.
Right out.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I just tooted.
Gross.
Hey, you want to give away my underwear? It comes with a price. Like,
That's funny.
yeah. Where are the red ones today? What color do they want? What color should I send? Nothing?
What? You talking to me?
Yeah, what color underwear should I send?
We haven't got a winner.
Well, it could happen.
Not going to happen. They would have called by now.
Now, if you said your underwear, I could keep the people off the lines.
Hey, did we find anybody? Did we ever find out what state? We did find the station in Washington, D.C. Did we
Okay.
find the station? Did we find the station in
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma?
890? No, all the person she gave me was 890 in Oklahoma.
890.
That's all I had.
Okay, hang on there.
So it has
That's
to be
all I
along the Texas-Oklahoma border.
Well, it's got to be away from. It's got to be away from Illinois.
Really? Oh, excuse me.
Okay. 890 KTLR, free internet radio.
Oh, lovely.
890 AM. Huh.
Let me look. Oh, you know what?
What?
That's what I think it is, maybe. Maybe.
1,000 watts daytime only.
I wonder if this is the same guy. You know what? Yeah, I think I know. I think we might be on this station. Don't quote me on this.
Daytime.
Because his website looks like his other websites for his other stations. And he owns one in Las Vegas. He owns a K Shop.
K Shop.
Yeah.
Huh.
And he owns one in Aurora in suburban.
Does he own one in Does he own one in Washington State?
I don't know. I'll have to look that up.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. My telephone number still is 844-927-6691. You know, I'm talking about this willingness by the mainstream media to change sides or to abandon the truth and choose sides. And the reason that I brought this up is because of this amazing article that I found in Fox News. I want you to listen to this very carefully. The President of the United States is currently, at least was during this particular aspect of this trip into the Pacific Rim, 6 hours ago, he was in Japan. President Trump and Japan Prime Minister Shinzo Abe carried out an old tradition of feeding carp at a koi pond at Alaska Palace in Tokyo. Covering the event was CNN. With CNN covering the story, do you believe that you would get the true story about what happened in this very simple event? Yes or no, and why? 844-927-6691. Call me. Answer that question. With CNN covering the story, do you believe that you would get more or less the truth as to what happened when the president stopped to honor the most beautiful carp in the world? (844) 927-6691. You would think that CNN couldn't possibly blow this story. But then again, you would think wrongly. In fact, CNN did blow the story. Purposefully. CNN ran a headline, Trump feeds fish, winds up pouring entire box of food into koi pond. Complete with a misleading tweet from reporter Veronica Rocha that only showed President Trump dumping the entire box of food. The video footage that was shot for the basic story to be told conveniently was edited to skip Prime Minister Abe doing the exact same thing. In fact, Abe dumped the entire box of fish food into the pond, and Trump followed while the Prime Minister of Japan smiled. Anti-Trump media has been cropping the video to only show President Trump pouring the food into the pool. Veronica Rocha, President Trump feeds fish with PM Shinzo Abe in Japan, then pours entire box of food into the koi pond. Bloomberg White House correspondent Justin Sink tweeted that Trump and Abe were spooning fish food into the pond when Trump decided to just dump the whole box in for the fish. The problem with the attempt to paint Trump as an animal-abusing, lazy American is that Japan's prime minister did the exact same thing seconds before. BuzzFeed ran a story headline, "This photo of Trump dumping his carp food in a pond in Japan has become a huge meme." An embedded series of Japanese tweets mocking the president. The Guardian even ran a story about the dangers of overfeeding fish. White House reporters, keen perhaps to pick up on a Trump gaffe, captured the moment when he upended his box on their smartphone and tweeted evidence of his questionable grasp of fish keeping, said The Guardian. Some speculated that a poor palace employee would be dispatched to the scene to clean up the mess as soon as the two leaders disappeared inside. Foreign dignitaries have been feeding the fish in the koi pond for years. Trump did not lose patience despite what the media wants the narrative to be. He was emulating Abe with his actions. On Twitter, a user wrote, Abe is basically watching in polite rage horror as the epic orange buffoon tries to kill his fish. But she certainly didn't see the entire video. While the New York Daily News said the former New York City real estate tycoon got a little heavy-handed while feeding koi. All of these things harken back to a day when the mainstream media decided to start playing politics. Apparently, when it was President Obama's turn, he took just a few pieces of fish food and threw it in for the koi. I mean, you just got to think that the president would do the same thing with fish that he did with America's school children, wouldn't you think? My favorite food is broccoli. Sure it is. Somebody ripping off this broadcast, the Palmer Report, they said this on tweet, why we've reached the stage of Trump's senility where Donald Trump pours the entire box of fish food into koi pond as Rex Tillerson looks on in horror. That is a true headline. Unbelievable. CNN, Trump joined his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe in feeding fish, emptying the whole box into the koi pond. So this is what they're doing. He is there in Japan, just downrange from a madman with nuclear weapons, trying to come up with some sort of circumstance whereby Japan can defend itself from this rogue maniac. And they've turned feeding fish into the latest controversy du jour. John Podhoretz says, I want to see whether CNN fires the koi pond editor, one of the very few overt acts of deliberate deception I can recall. Deliberate deception is completely correct. So they just edited the videotape to show President Trump apparently doing something wrong that he didn't do wrong. And then they reported that he did wrong. And then they kept pounding on it, pounding on it, pounding on it. The leftist media is so far gone that their entire consuming group, their entire constituency, buys whatever they say, lock, stock, and barrel. Whatever it is. Anything that the mainstream media can possibly come up with to avoid the tax bill, which is so good even Democrats are voting for it. All of these things set aside for the sake of this dumb narrative of the day. Dumb narrative of the day. He's meeting with the Japanese prime minister. They overfed the fish. Today in the news, flash. This just in. President Trump stupidly overfeeds fish. Completely misreported the event. The koi controversy. How do we overcome this? How does the mainstream media find its professional compass yet again? How does the mainstream media stop throwing this garbage at us? How do we stop them? Should we? Do we need to stop them? Yes, of course we do. How many lies about the president can these people tell? I'm telling you, the reason we have a divided country is because we have a corrupt press. The reason that both the Republican and Democrat Party have been pushed and warped so far out of shape is because of the amazing hydraulic pressure involved in a media narrative. We must stop. I did. Telling the truth is doable. It's easy, actually. It's a different style of journalism. You actually report the stories that are there. And you put it out in a way where people can read them. In my case, I use radio, a data stream, one of America's great radio networks. That's what I do. To do otherwise is simply malpractice. Malpractice before the only constitutionally guaranteed profession in these United States. I truly do need somebody to step up to the plate here and come up with some sort of way to explain why it is that CNN would be so stupid, would work so desperately hard to damage President Trump in such a juvenile way. Pouring box of koi food in a koi pond. These are carp. They don't care. They're not picky. I would venture to say that some of these koi probably only got 4 or 5 pieces of that food. That's not overfeeding them. But who cares? What did Shinzo Abe and the president talk about? Did the president talk with Shinzo Abe about perhaps signing over some of our older U.S. Navy ships to a revitalized Japanese Navy? Did the president talk to the Japanese Air Force about perhaps grabbing what they call an F-4, which is basically a modernized version of the F-16, and bringing them back to the United States for use by the U.S. Air Force? Did the president spend time talking with Shinzo Abe about the possibility of Japan at some point having their own nuclear weapons? Is that what they talked about? No, they overfed koi. They overfed koi? Are we clutching at the low-hanging fruit to the point that we're missing the story? That's not burying the lead. That's journalistic incompetence. I want to know what the president and Abe talked about. We know it's possible for the mainstream media to do that because they routinely bug the president's cabinet meetings. The sound has yet to stop bouncing around the walls of the cabinet meeting room, and already someone's working on copy for the next edition of the New York Times or for the next edition of the Washington Post. But they can't figure out a way to actually find out what Shinzo Abe and President Trump are talking about on the president's first trip to the Pacific Rim. Seriously? This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
I know what they're talking about.
What? Dames, skirts.
Why in Japanese baseball they call a game after 14 innings if it's tied?
That's ridiculous.
No, that's true. That is actually a true thing. No, the baseball part, that is true in Japan. They call a game after 14 innings if it's tied.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Let me guess. Fake news against our dear leader? You know, I think Trump should run for a third term. He's already won the second.
You think?
So, oh yeah, he's a god. Trump could do no wrong.
I wonder.
You know? Then after, Ivanka could be president. Wow, I did not expect Dan to say that. Dan just said, and I quote, that Trump makes Jesus seem like Muhammad.
Jeez.
Dan was such a good kid when we met him. We have totally corrupted him. Like, there's no going back. The lovable guy they left with us, he's dead. He doesn't exist anymore. You know. Oh, wow, Dan. I was not expecting that. Damn funny, but I wasn't expecting that. But did you know that you're not a baseball guy, are you?
Yeah.
You really?
Absolutely.
That is true. In Japanese baseball, they do not play after a 14th inning.
That's incredible.
You don't care.
I didn't know.
No.
I had no idea.
I didn't either until I saw the movie Mr. Baseball.
Huh.
It's a good movie.
Well, I guess.
Just have to take my word for it.
Mr. Baseball, I actually saw the movie.
Yeah.
I like the movie. I like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. Uh-oh, Patrick's here. My dark cloud. It's called working, Patrick. No, new schedule because JD gets off at 4 now. Although I didn't tell him we've extended his show an hour today.
Sure we did.
Oh, hey, buddy. So, are Floyd and Janet in there?
No.
Okay. All right. Just curious about something. Highs in the mid 80s this week. I can live with that.
Yeah, I knew. I caught a chill over the weekend.
Right.
And spent the weekend with a hoodie on. And I'm gonna get out of here and go home, and I'm going to eat the biggest possible bowl of chicken soup.
Yeah, just crash out.
And then I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, shut it down for the night.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Let me come over and tuck you in. I can put some things on your chest.
Nay.
You sure?
Yes.
I'll wear that thong you like.
Yikes.
One more segment. Here we go.
All right.
You did good today.
Thank you. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number again is 844-927-6691. That's 844-927-6691. That's the number you should use. Earlier this afternoon, I created a challenge. We were talking about the stupidity of people in Hollywood calling for the rest of us to disarm ourselves before evil such as was practiced yesterday in San Antonio. I keep telling these people that they are completely and totally nuts. And the reason that I keep telling them that they're completely and totally nuts is because they're completely and totally nuts. It's really simple. Simpler words cannot be shared among reasoning adults. These people are stupid. Especially when you think about the unbelievable hypocrisy of Hollywood yokels, actors trying to come across as if they actually know something. With all due respect to what is a noble profession, you got to keep it in perspective. These people learn how to manipulate their personal behavior, both physical and mental, to the point that they can convincingly issue forth other people's words for comedic and or dramatic effect. That's it. What are their words? Not much. And so what I did was I said, with the hypocrisy of so many action movies, including Steve King, who said, when is all this going to stop? Well, Steve, when you quit writing your Gunslinger series of Stephen King novels, where the hero is somebody who uses his pistols as the ultimate in justice. That may be the time. Meantime, lecturing us on the fact that we should put our weapons down while he makes millions with his. So what I did was this, is I said, when was the last major Hollywood movie to actually portray the hero of the movie confronted with an ultra-violent villain? When was the last time you saw that hero put his weapon down, his gun, and engage the vicious villain in a conversation that actually worked and actually ended up with the hero making a very good point with the villain? Do you remember what the last one was? I said that if you could call 844-927-6691 and tell me who that leading man was in this spy thriller, I would give you our technical producer, Chris Campbell's underwear, after being washed, of course. So far, nobody has gotten it. So what I will do is I will tell you the answer. The answer to my riddle, if you will, my query, my contest, my super trivia game. Here's the answer. Get Smart. Steve Carroll. He was dealing with a villain that they referred to as Easter Island. And he put down his gun and he said, big people have feelings too. It was a very funny moment in the movie. So there you go, in case you wanted to know. The executive producer of the Wells Report is the Philip Brown. Technical producer is Chris Campbell. John David Wells saying, see you tomorrow.
You're clear. You did good today.
Thank you very much.
By the way, some lady, Sandy, I think her name is.
Yes.
She goes, "What's the answer?" I go, before I tell you, just so you know, you're not winning any personal items of mine. She started laughing.
Oh, that's so funny.
So, you have a good night. Go get some sleep, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, pal.
God bless. Take good care. Thanks very much for the good words.
All right. Bud.
All right, man. See you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.